You're listening to the Platte River Bard.
Hello, and welcome to the Platte River Bard. This is Chris Berger.
And I'm Sherry Berger.
And today we are here with Seth Fox. He is the curator of Musing at Bluebarn. Seth, welcome to our little podcast.
Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I know that this is a holiday, so thank you for taking your holiday day to talk to us.
The last day of the
Happy
year.
New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you.
Great way to
Thank
celebrate
you.
it, to talk about theater.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have put together and are continuing to put together a I guess you call it a series of podcasts. Well, I'll let you explain it. Called Musing.
Right. So it's a live storytelling series actually at the Bluebarn, and we're doing 4 this season. It's part of their happenings series. So these aren't necessarily like main stage events. They are like, I know one of their happenings is a pop-up event, and then Musing is a quarterly gathering, a free quarterly gathering. So yeah, we have 4 different shows planned this year. We've already got one under our belt and one coming up in January.
So you've already done one in October that's out there, and it's called Music, Movies, and Me.
Yes.
How did that go? So that was during the pandemic as well, so you had to make some changes for that one.
It went so well. It basically what happened was, Susan Clement and I, Susan from the Bluebarn and I, sat down last summer, and I pitched this idea to her. I said, hey, you're familiar with The Moth? I think she was kind of familiar with The Moth. But anyway, I'm a huge fan of The Moth, which is its own storytelling series, of course, on NPR. I said to her, I have this idea that, we pick these themes, and then we bring people from the community in, and they're going to tell stories based on these themes. These are true stories, one-night only events, 5 to 6 people, rehearsed, of course, prepared, not just talking off the cuff.
Right.
And I really think people will come, and I really think, people will connect. And she said, yeah, great. Really spoke to her. She said, yeah, great, let's do it. So we put out a call with our full season lined up. We put out a call for storytellers. We posted the season, all 4 themes, because each event has its own theme, an email address where you could pitch your theme to, and then we waited, and the pitches started coming in. Slowly started coming in. Yeah. And of course I had to tap a couple of shoulders of a couple of people. Being connected with the theater community here in Omaha, I tapped a couple of people on the shoulder that I thought would really excel at this. I said, hey, are you interested? And of course they were. They were also familiar with The Moth. There's really nothing like this happening in Omaha, as far as I know of.
Not that we've heard,
so people were eager to do it. That always wanted to do it. They were eager to do it. And that's how it started. Had half a dozen people and jumped in and did it. And I think the couple weeks before, we had about 25 reservations. By the end of that week, we were full, and we were on a waiting list. People were hungry for this. Yeah, it was very, very satisfying. The turnout was great.
That's great. And I like that you have it available for people to listen to after the fact as well.
Yeah, Bill Kirby at the Bluebarn, he approached me and after the first event and said, hey, what do you think about doing a podcast? Putting this together for a podcast. I said, yeah, great, let's do it. And so, we're putting that out now too, after each event.
That's great, so people can catch up.
Yeah, exactly. If you can't join the live event, you can listen to it later. And
right.
I've noticed, and I don't know whether it's just me just noticing for the first time, but this whole sort of storytelling type of setup seems to be more popular than it used to be. And I don't know whether it's just because we have such easy access to be able to do this. It's so easy for you to be able to just record this and put it on the internet. Like no problem now.
Right.
And just like it's so easy for us just to do a podcast.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's maybe that's it, or I don't know, but
I don't know. I think
I love it. I think it's really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's this really special. I started doing these
What brought you
myself
to it?
back in Phoenix. So it's kind of a long story short story thing, but
Sure.
I discovered 2 podcasts back in 2010. I started taking these long power walks. This was like my meditation time.
Yeah.
And I discovered 2 podcasts, This American Life and The Moth.
Okay.
And what they have in common is, of course, is each episode is based on a theme, of course. And then they highlight, true stories, human interest stories based on that theme. And This American Life takes more of a journalistic approach, and The Moth actually has the people who lived these stories telling these stories in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
And that really appealed to me.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of documentaries. I just have this desire to hear other people's stories and life experiences. I'm a much better listener, Anyway, so when I moved to Phoenix, I was there for a few years. There was some definite turbulence in my life, in my personal life, and in a matter of just a couple of years, there was some tremendous loss. I got very, very stuck in my head to a fault. I've always kind of been, a thinker.
Yeah.
But this was to a fault. And one of my outlets back in the day was always, hey, I'm just going to do a show. I'm going to lose myself in the land of make-believe. I can put aside reality for just a couple of hours a night and play make-believe, But I didn't have that pull or that desire. And then I started working for a mail-order brownie company over Christmas. I was a seasonal employee, and they were the corporate sponsors of Arizona Storytellers, which is a Moth sort of, show, right? And I thought, this could be good for me. I've always wanted to do this. I'm gonna try this. I'm just gonna try this. And I did one, and I got hooked. And it was finally, I felt like I was getting out of my head. I was telling stories about my own life and my own perceptions. I was processing through things.
Yeah.
And it was therapeutic.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that coming, at all.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
And
okay.
Yeah, I just didn't see it coming. I thought, I thought this is just, like the first theme that I did was about was work stories. I went in and told this work story, this funny work story, and it was when I was preparing for that I thought, wow, there was a lot happening in my life that was informing this story. And some of that is feeding into, of course, the decisions I made during that experience, and now my perceptions after. I don't know, everything just kind of came full circle and clicked and made for an even better story. Well, what I noticed was that the connection I was making with the audience, what other people were making with the audience during these stories, was you could feel the vibe in the room, this connection between the storyteller and their audience.
Yeah.
And there's no podium, there's no paper, there's nothing blocking that exchange.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can also feel the connection within the audience.
Yeah,
I don't know. You have to really experience it.
Yeah,
but
it's
I knew
really
it was very
open.
special.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was very special.
That is.
And I did a few of them, and then I moved back here and presented the idea to Susan, and here we are.
Yeah.
We're creating that at the Bluebarn. Yeah.
It's so interesting that you talk about coming up with this idea in your meditative walking. And it's so funny because I was listening to a podcast this morning, because obviously we're all very audio that are on this podcast today. And she was talking about a book called Walking Meditation by John Kabat-Zinn, called Wherever You Go, There You Are. And it's kind of about that. Is that something that you do on a normal basis, that you've learned to do, that helps you? Or how did you come up with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Going for these long walks, it not only helps me to decompress. It not only is good exercise. It's not only like good cardio and all of that, but it also, I put in my earbuds. I listen to a podcast. I listen to music. Sometimes, just so people won't bother me, I don't listen to anything. I just have my earbuds in and let people assume I don't want to be bothered. And
I
it
can
works.
totally relate.
But I can just go through, and it's almost like I work out the logistics of things in my life that are happening, or whatever it might be. That walk helps me to get there. It clears the fog and the static,
Yeah.
and I can get laser focused on whatever is happening
Isn't
in
that
my
neat?
life or in my world.
Because we all have creative blocks. So it's really
Uh-huh.
good to learn good, other tools to be able to get past that.
Absolutely.
So neat.
Absolutely.
So how great. We as Omaha are really honored to be able to have you come and bring the storytelling experience back to Omaha. That's kind of how we ended up with Fringe. So it's so neat. Now we have a storytelling series, and you brought that experience back from Phoenix.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I was really, it was funny because when I first moved back here in 2018, we clearly we didn't get this project started till 2021. When I moved back here in 2018, I remember talking to my mom one night on the phone, and but to back up, when I first moved back, within the first couple of weeks, a few people reached out and said, "Hey, we're doing a show. We need a guy. We need a body. Are you interested?" And I wasn't. And so I politely declined. But again, that didn't stop me from being a creative person or wanting to express myself creatively. And so I said to my mom one night, I said, I wanted to do this storytelling thing. I really think Omaha is ripe for that. I think that there are just so many amazing stories to be told. So why not? Why not do it? Well, then, 3 years later, we finally did it. I had been cast in a chorus line at the Bluebarn. I finally felt that bug to get back on stage, but I was always doing musical theater before, but I had vocal problems, and so I stopped doing musical theater. But the part of Zach in a chorus line, he's the director, non-singing, non-dancing.
Yeah.
Awesome. He's just this voice in the back of the theater, and I thought, hey, this could work.
Yeah.
And I'd never done a show at the Bluebarn or worked with Susan before. So we started doing that show, and then of course the pandemic shut everything down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we never staged it.
Right.
But she said, I remember she said in an email post or in an email to the cast or maybe in a social media post, if you all have anything creative that you're thinking of, anything that you would like to stage or a project that you would like to pursue, let me know.
Yeah.
And it took me about a year, but I finally did.
Yeah.
I finally went through with this idea, and here we are.
That's so
here
neat.
we are.
No, and,
Yeah.
and we can totally relate. We also feel on the podcast there's a lot of great stories out there for people to tell. And I think even just people who want to get into theater and don't know how to do it. When they hear these type of stories and they listen to the podcast and talk to people who are doing it, then they realize that there's a place for them. And I think a lot of times
Absolutely.
people don't think there's a place. So
Well, and the thing that's really interesting, I think that I guess to better explain what we do, what Musing does is yes, this is a storytelling series. Each one night only event has its own theme, like we mentioned. But this isn't like, Pappy sitting down by the fire whittling and, telling you about, in his day, that kind of thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? These are our friends and neighbors and coworkers and people who they're not actors. They're not even, some of them even seasoned public speakers.
Okay.
These are people with life experiences who clearly feel comfortable enough to get up in front of a room full of strangers and bare their souls
Yes.
and tell a story about their lives.
About themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's no acting involved. The storytellers are coached to resist the temptation to play to the audience.
Okay.
To make it in any way theatrical.
Sure.
It's a very simple approach. There's a microphone, there's a spotlight, there's a storyteller, and there's a really good story about to be told.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's so basic. And so for 15 minutes, people get to sit back and listen to this everyday person in their own clothes, in their own skin, telling them a story about their life.
And talking like a regular person would talk. Yeah.
Correct. Very conversational.
Not
Yep.
a
Again,
performance.
it's all very rehearsed. It's rehearsed. It's prepared. It's all of that.
Right.
But it's still genuine, and it's in
Yes.
their voice and their words. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a presentation. It's not a performance. Yeah.
Although
Right.
I think it was Carrie, who has such an amazing voice. She did a little bit of singing in hers, and I was just like, okay, you can keep singing some more of that if you'd like. You have such a good.
I even told her.
voice.
I told her when we were doing our coaching sessions, because each storyteller we do 2 workshopping sessions or coaching sessions where, we sit down, we go over their story, we fine tune it, we finesse it, we give feedback and all of that. And during hers, when we discovered that there was an opportunity for her to sing the Lutheran doxology,
Yeah.
I told her, I said, you can sing to me anytime you want. That's actually one of my favorite parts of doing this with you, is that I get to hear you sing.
Yes.
She really does have quite a gift.
She really does. She really does. Yeah.
And it's a good story, right?
It's a great
good
story.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And now you've got more coming up. So you're coming into themes with every single event that you're having.
Right.
Yes.
And so now you're looking for people to fit into those themes. So how is that?
Right.
Or do you already have it planned out?
So here's the deal, is that when we very first put out that first call, like I said, we put out our season, and I got like a handful of emails or pitches for the first event, Music, Movies, and Me. I got one for our upcoming event. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Our third event, Life and Death, just this tidal wave of pitches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Just this, so many pitches. Our fourth event, Home, we got a few too. And so we hadn't, filled, the season with storytellers. Mm-hmm. But then after the first event, and then I did an interview with the local NPR, KIOS, then more pitches started coming in.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a great problem to have, because now we have all of these pitches, and we just have to go through them and select which ones are going to be the most fitting, for that evening.
For that evening.
It's exciting. It's a great problem to have too many pitches.
Yeah.
And that'll match your audience. Being able to get on KIOS. That is.
It was very helpful.
Yeah.
It really was.
They're a really helpful
Listening
station.
for sure. Yeah. Listen to what Holmes thought.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
So, but if somebody wanted to pitch, I noticed that all of that is on the Bluebarn's website. Your email, I think, and a phone number to pitch an idea to you.
Right. If somebody wants to pitch an idea, it's okay. So here's the deal. So with our first season, of course, we had all the themes picked out and put out there, and pitch to those themes, based on those themes. And people do want to pitch based on those themes. We are still looking for pitches for Home for the last event, but they can email musingomaha@gmail.com to have their pitches considered. But I also want to make sure that people know that even if their story doesn't fit, one of the 4 themes, but you still have a great story to tell, pitch it.
Yeah.
Who knows? We may create a night based around, similar stories based on that theme.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
people can pitch whatever they want. As long as it's a great story, we're going to listen to it. And I'm kind of hoping that if we do this for a second season, that we can determine the season and the themes of that season based off of whatever pitches we've gotten.
Right.
Yeah. So kind of let the pitches determine the season. I'm kind of hoping that happens.
See, now I can't help thinking in my head, I'm like, gosh, if I were to tell a story.
There you go.
I know. I'm already.
Because it doesn't have to be about theater.
No,
Although,
it doesn't. No.
There was some that were kind of in that genre.
We had some theater folk in that first one, of course. And the arts music is of course going to really, really speak to theater people in particular for whatever reason. Sure. It doesn't have to be about theater. In fact, none of our themes are specifically about that. Well, music, movies, and me, of course. But yeah, anybody can get up and tell a story. Anybody. Yeah. Anybody can. We encourage anybody from any walk of life, to do it.
Yeah. I mean, if we've all learned life lessons, which one do you choose?
Yeah, exactly. Well, right. And speaking of stories, how did you ultimately get involved in the performing arts? How did you start out? Yeah, I mean, you didn't start out doing the storytelling thing. I'm assuming you got theater sucked you in at some point, or
yeah.
When did that
I come
happen?
from a very long line of musicians and artists in my family. My great-grandparents were immigrants from Czechoslovakia, and my great-grandfather Joe had a polka band in the 40s and the 50s.
Excellent.
Yeah, actually right up into the 60s. And they traveled all over the Midwest. They played every circuit, every dance hall, music hall circuit. He's even on the Wall of Fame at the Sokol.
Excellent.
But it was amazing. So music was always part of my life.
Yeah.
And then my grandmother, my mom's mom, she was a vocalist, had her own radio show back in the I want to say the 40s. And my mom, of course, had the theatrical bug. And so it was just kind of always around me. And then I discovered, this is so funny, you guys, but it's God's honest truth. Then I discovered the musical Annie when I was a kid.
Oh.
Okay.
And I'd never heard little kids sing that way.
Oh.
I mean, these were little kids who really had pipes, and they had this thing called a vibrato, and they were,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. And it was easy to sing along. And that's kind of where my desire to be on stage came from. Of course, I wasn't ever going to be an orphan in Annie, but it broadened my horizons, and I discovered the world of musical theater. And so I did children's theater, and then I got involved in theater in middle school and high school, and then college, and then community theater. And then it brought me to Omaha, and I started doing shows at the Playhouse and toured with a caravan, and it was just it was just my life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
but it all started, of course, the soundtrack to Annie.
Wow.
I have to say,
Annie.
Wow.
I know.
And you didn't
I
even
know.
necessarily see it. You just had the soundtrack.
I think that's wonderful.
Just had the soundtrack.
Annie, when I got bit by the theater bug in high school, Annie was the very first production I ever did.
Really?
Yes, I was the guy who pushed FDR around. Lewis Howe. That was me. I had like 3 lines.
Yeah.
And the guy I pushed around is the guy, lifelong friend who I'm still friends with and in a group today. The guy.
Wow.
Hanover.
So we
Yes,
both
indeed.
played Bob Cratchit,
Yes.
and Annie is also sort of a pivotal moment in your life.
Annie was
I
a
mean,
big deal. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes,
That's
those
hilarious.
songs will never leave my head.
Ever. Never.
true.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Oh,
wonderful.
neat. So you're originally from Arizona then? So.
No, actually, I grew up in
Oh.
Grand Island.
Oh, okay. So you do
okay.
have a Nebraska
Yeah.
connection. Okay.
Yeah, I grew up in Grand Island, and then I moved to Omaha in 2000. I was pursuing a career as a singer-songwriter at the time. Worked really, really hard doing that, had some very, very minor success doing that. And then one day a friend of mine said, hey, the Dundee Dinner Theater is doing this show. That's when the Dundee Dinner Theater was still around.
Yeah.
They're doing this show and they need guys. Are you interested? And I said, I hadn't done a show in ages. And I thought, yeah, sure. What is it? He said, well, it's a show called Pageant. And I said, okay, tell me more about it. He said, well, it's a beauty pageant. And all the parts are played by men and they're all in drag.
Woohoo!
And I thought, tell
Okay.
me more.
All right.
And so it really is that. It is a beauty pageant. It has all of the categories. It has swimsuit. It does have swimsuit. It
Right.
has talent. It has all of these things. But each night has a different ending because the audience gets to judge it.
They get to vote.
Oh, wow.
They get to vote. And so you have to plan for 5 or 6 different endings. And any one of those could
That is-
happen any given night.
Oh,
Oh my God. It was
That's-
so much fun.
That sounds.
That would
yes,
be
that
fun.
sounds like a hell of a
It
lot
was
of fun.
so much fun. Although I will tell you, you always think you're going to be prettier than you are in drag. Well, at least that was my experience. Wow, yeah.
Oh my god.
She was not what I expected. I played Miss Deep South, and she was not what I expected. But it was a ton of fun. And then I just started doing theater around town after that. You just start meeting people, and
Yeah.
you want to do this show, or let's audition for this show, and yeah,
Find a
became a
track.
lifestyle actually.
Yeah.
Oh,
Boy,
yes.
I'll tell you, I went to the Miss Oklahoma contest when I lived in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I was so impressed. How
Oh,
they
this was a
looked.
drag pageant.
I was
You were at a
just
drag
like-
pageant.
Yeah, I was just.
Oh, right on.
I was just absolutely blown away
Oh,
by
yeah.
how good
Yeah.
they looked. I was like, wow,
I know.
she looks better than me ever. Put that makeup on me, you still.
It's a craft. It is a craft.
Oh,
And
my God,
I started watching RuPaul's Drag Race, and the only drag queens I'd ever seen were like at the Max, like at a bar, and it was maybe a couple of numbers, and they collected dollar bills, and they lip synced, and that was great. And they were entertaining, but then I saw RuPaul's Drag Race, and I thought, people make a living doing this.
Oh, yeah.
They do. It's like a thing.
And it's an art form.
Incredible.
I was so impressed.
Yeah.
I mean, it just takes so much work. It's definitely a craft.
So much
They do a ton of
dedication and preparation and all of that.
And so, how long did you have to dress up? How long did you have to learn how to do that?
How long did it take you to change?
Oh my God. Well, I knew nothing about makeup. I knew nothing about any of that. I just, you learn as you go. But
Sure.
again, I kind of looked like a brick with lipstick and a wig. I mean, she was not pretty, but she did a talent competition. Miss Deep South's talent portion was a salute to Dixie with puppets. And
Excellent.
so we had, Grandma on the right hand and Grandpa on the left hand, and then Miss Deep South was herself, manipulating it. And there was a musical number where I had to do all three different voices, and the tempo got faster and faster and faster, and it was just such a thrill to play her. But preparing for her, I had to learn how to walk in heels.
Yep.
You have to learn, to cinch, all of that. Oh my God, it can be painful at times, but it took at least a couple of hours a night to look as good as I did. Oh Lord, yeah,
I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really was a lot of fun. It really was.
Oh
Neat.
man,
So,
I like that.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That open format where anything, all the 5, 6 different endings. So much fun.
Well, and that's one of the things too about the storytelling events is you never know what to expect. Each of the tellers looks at the theme, and then they each riff on that theme in their own way.
Yeah.
And some of them it's a metaphorical approach to the theme. Others it is a literal approach to the theme.
Okay.
And so you never know where these stories are going to take you.
Everybody's coming at it from their own angle.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's so fascinating is that, again, each teller touches on the theme in his or her own way. Mm-hmm. And again, it's just so surprising. There are some of the stories that I think I would never have thought that would fit that theme. Or there have been, but it does. And then there are a couple of other pitches I've gotten where I've said to the teller, I think this is this story. I think your story fits this theme. Mm-hmm. And as we have a larger conversation about it, we discover that there are so many other possibilities. The true story is in maybe this one detail, that they didn't even consider could be a focal point.
Sure.
But it is
because they're so close to it, and then somebody else looks at it and goes, "Oh no, this is what you're saying." Yeah,
mm-hmm. Right. And so the audience gets to make those conclusions on their own too.
That's cool.
That's cool. Yeah, it really is. It really is. It's very special.
I'm really excited for you. What a neat project! It's just really taken off. So
it really has.
And
it really has.
So you've got
we're about 3 weeks away from our next event.
Yeah.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going where you were going.
Yes. You're coming up in,
January 19th.
Yes.
Yeah, January 19th. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Yeah.
Yes.
And these storytellers, we've all been there, right?
Yep.
Where you go into a situation and you have the best of intentions, and then these unforeseen circumstances, surface. And we have 4 absolutely wonderful stories, 4 absolutely wonderful storytellers. Each of them take their own path on this theme. And it's just what a joy it is, to work with these people, because these are just interesting people. Even outside of the stories that they're telling, these are really interesting people that I am loving getting to know. Yeah. And you do make a very deep personal connection during these coaching and workshopping sessions because, we're talking about a personal experience in their life. But some of the stories are just hilarious. And even some of the more intense stories where the subject matter is a little more intense have those moments of levity that allows us to breathe and to laugh.
Yeah.
And also see the human side of one another.
Mm-hmm.
You find ways to get through stuff. Sometimes you find reserves you didn't even know you had.
Yeah.
And that's largely through humor. I've found. Yeah.
I would think it'd be really interesting for how you go about coaching someone when you don't really know the whole story. Mm-hmm. There's more behind it. Have you found that to be a challenge at all on how you coach someone into that, or?
Um, what I've found is that the storytellers that I've worked with so far, they have either told these stories in their heads enough, or maybe even at a party, or they've written it down enough that they're pretty focused and well versed, I guess, prepared coming into it. But yeah, it is during these coaching sessions when I'm providing feedback, and there's another coach, Andy Dillahay. He was one of our storytellers for the first event, but he's also helping coaching with this one now, where as we said earlier, something will occur to us that either has never occurred to the storyteller or hasn't occurred to them for a very long time. And sometimes it does touch on a very deeply personal, moment in their lives or within the story. And we just allow them to determine the comfort zone, how much they want to share or not share, how personal they want to get or not get.
Right.
It's a safe space to be as open and vulnerable as you're comfortable being,
Neat.
Yeah.
Well, that's neat. Well, I really look forward to all of these. So you've got one also scheduled for April 13th, Life and Death, and Home on June 15th. They're all on a Wednesday night at 7:30.
They are all on Wednesday night. They are
Yeah.
all free. One night only. And all just, we're starting to prepare. We're going to start preparing and coaching the next group of storytellers in late January.
Okay.
And so we're still sort of looking at pitches for that one because we have so many, like I said, for Life and Death. I know we were talking earlier. Life and Death has really brought out the pitches.
Yeah.
And it goes back to this being such a therapeutic experience. People need to talk about their experiences, especially when it comes to life and death, starts and stops, all of that.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a special sensitivity we need to be able to apply to those sessions and to when we're picking the pitches and all of that. But I just have to say, I think we've found. I think why this is so important is that we found ourselves as a society. We found ourselves kind of in a position where, in my opinion, we've stopped listening to each other. It's not about listening, or I don't even think compromising is the right word. It's about right and wrong. I'm right, you're wrong.
Yes.
It's about
winning and losing. Yeah.
Winning and losing. The stakes are always so high,
Yeah.
And it doesn't really seem like there's any room anymore to just listen and find a connection through listening.
Yeah.
And really reconnect with one another. And I think the pandemic had played into that too, where there was just so much distancing. For very good reasons, of course.
Yes.
But, now I think it's important to reconnect. And more important than ever to connect with one another. And it happens with this.
Yeah.
It happens in that space and in that short window of time where you put down your device, you turn off, the news, and you just listen.
Right.
And just allow yourself to get lost in that experience.
Right.
We've kind of forgotten how to do that, I think.
Yeah, I've been shocked at the people that simply won't podcast. I don't get it. I
Really?
enjoy listening. So I guess you have to enjoy listening. And I kind of worry, I came from hospice, and seeing the people who have lost family members during this pandemic and weren't able to grieve and weren't able to have funerals and things like that, I kind of wonder, how they're going to have to find that outlet. Like where do they find that outlet and feel like people are there for them,
And maybe it's in storytelling. I can't imagine having to going through that experience where you're not able to have that, put a period at the end of that sentence, have a formal goodbye, have a funeral, a memorial service, a celebration of life, to be able to go through the rituals of grief.
Yeah.
Because everything's on pause. I can't even imagine what that must be like.
No, I can't either.
But that was the impetus for me to get involved in storytelling. I was working through so much personal loss. I had to find a way chink in that armor, I guess, to start expressing myself again, but in a safe space, but still be able to be vulnerable and speak my truth and be honest, but in a safe space where people would just listen.
Right.
The last thing you need in those situations, as you guys probably know, is any sort of advice.
Yes.
I know people have the best of intentions.
Yes.
Yes.
They do.
People
But really,
who should all over you.
Yes.
Oh, right.
You should.
Yes.
You should.
You should. Yeah.
Can't stand
And you know
it.
what?
I have no
Just listen.
patience for it.
Just listen
No.
and be here. Yeah.
All I do when I'm trying to when I just want to be heard or just want somebody to listen, and somebody starts jumping in again with the best of intentions to try to help, I start shutting down. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, I
Right.
just, because I'm afraid if I get into the middle of a sentence of something I really want to express and I get interrupted, it's just, is it being, devalued or diminished in
Right.
some way? It kind of feels that way.
Right.
And with musing, those 15 minutes as a storyteller, those are yours. You have an audience for 15 minutes,
Right.
speak,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's therapeutic. I guess that's what they do in therapy, right? Usually hold something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Usually hold something when the person is talking.
Yeah, exactly.
6 minutes.
That's right, the little baton or
Yeah,
whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, like the conch, who's got the conch?
That's right, the conch.
You have the floor. You
That's
have
right.
the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. Well,
Yeah.
we are so appreciative of being able to talk to you about this
Yes.
and letting
Oh,
other
thank
people
you.
hear more about it.
Yeah, and again, we're still looking for pitches. I hope people feel brave enough to send a pitch. I love reading them. We consider all of them. And again, I would love to be able to base a season or a night or a theme just based solely on the pitches that we've gotten. I even foresee a night where there is no specific theme, where it's just a grab bag of stories.
Yeah,
that could
On a variety of themes, right?
Sure.
Because then the audience doesn't know what to expect.
Yeah. that's
what are you going
true.
to get? Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
you could always
right.
do that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's a potluck.
That's
It is a
right.
potluck.
If you're lucky,
That's
you get
great.
a pot.
I like
That's
that.
right.
Yeah.
Potluck.
So thank you guys for helping me to get the
you.
word out,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
I really think to experience it is you're just, people are just going to fall in love with it.
I think
You
so.
know.
I've always been a big fan growing up of radio and radio shows, and it's all the same. It's podcast radio, and I think the podcast format has kind of helped sort of the return of the radio show a little more, and
I agree.
and allows this kind of thing to be more accessible and to happen more. People are doing more things like this,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
Yeah,
just
so
love
do
it.
I. I'm a huge fan of old radio shows too. I thoroughly agree with you. I think that this is just such a special medium.
Yes.
And and if people would just, people who won't podcast, like you were saying, Sherry, I don't get it.
It's just radio.
Find
yeah.
one that
Yeah.
find one that might interest you and listen to one episode.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck, and I hope that we can talk to you again and find out what you're coming up with in your next round and all of that.
I
We
would love
to
that.
circle back and
For sure.
and talk to you.
I would love that, and I hope you guys can come
Yes.
to one of the events.
Yes, I would love to come to one of the events.
Yeah,
For sure.
we've
Absolutely.
we got a lot of interest already in this next one, and again, it's free, but we encourage reservations simply because seating is limited, and then especially now with this next wave, the Omicron, strain, we're of course being very, very cognizant and very sensitive to social distancing and all of that, and whatever needs to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, Seth Fox, thank
You too, you
Thank
guys.
you
so
so
much.
much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very nice
Thank
to
you.
talk to you, and
Too.
I guess best of luck, break legs on this coming season of music.
Yeah. That
Yes.
works.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next Musing storytelling live events are It Seemed Like a Good Idea at the Time. Stories about the best of intentions and unforeseen consequences will be held January 19th at 7:30 p.m. Life and Death. Stories about starts and stops, beginnings and endings, renewal and letting go will be held April 13th at 7:30 p.m. And Home. Stories about where we came from, where we end up, and Where We Fit In will be held June 15th at 7:30 p.m. All events will be held at the Bluebarn Theatre at 1106 South 10th Street in Omaha. And you can follow Musing on its own Instagram page at Musing Omaha. You can also follow them on Facebook and at the Bluebarn website at bluebarn.org. The events will be recorded and available through the Bluebarn website and podcast outlets. And watch this space as we will be bringing you more about musing.
Thank you for listening and supporting the arts in the Platte River area and beyond. Please subscribe to our podcast so you are sure to catch all of our future episodes and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Music for this podcast was used with permission by Screaming Skull Productions. See you next time on the Platte River Bard.